for joining us this evening. It's Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. And we're going to start out with our training meetings. We have Roland Movements, Mr.
I'll open the laws and ordinance committee meeting at 6 p.m. with ordinance number 25004, an ordinance providing for the regulation of short-term rental operations. I was absent last meeting, and thankfully fellow Councilman Wolf was able to give some input on our meeting that we had with the law director. I've been able to make some implementations that he talked about. I can go over them per section. For example, section 2, the definitions. Section 2K was duplicative, so we talked about that above. That's just a housekeeping thing we cleaned up. There was another thing that we talked about was with the issue with transfer of title. So as it's currently wrote, any transfer of title for any reason would have to get a new permit. We're working on the wording of making sure that, like, if you transfer to yourself to an LLC that is also yourself, and you're the same person that's operating the LLC, and you're still the same, try to get the word right, if you're still the same, let's see. If you're the same emergency contact, you don't need to get a new permit. So let's say, like, for, getting ready to move on, you're just changing it to the state that's also you, but it's a technically different entity than yourself, you won't have to get a new permit for that process. So thankfully the law director was able to explain that to me a little bit, because I was like, well, how would we word that? And we've worked on a little bit of wording, so I think that's a good thing that we worked on. And then I'll move on down. On section 6, I think we moved a little bit about the prior conviction of criminal conduct. I was advised that we cannot discriminate against people with criminal conduct in a zoning manner, and it would be against the city's interest to do so. It's just, you're just not allowed to do it. I was told, all right, we're not allowed to do it. And that is, as far as that, I know there's obviously the 300-foot rule. I think Craig, Mr. Fellow Councilman, Mr. Wolf talked about it a little bit. And, when I always draft legislation, I always do so in a very slow and methodical manner. That's very thoughtful, I believe. And I always approach this with how many rules do I not have to make? So I want to make the least regulatory rules and burden the people the least amount I can. I don't want to add rules that are unnecessary at the moment, or add rules that create precedence for something that's not an issue. So the 300-foot rule currently in City of New Franklin won't change anything. I've drafted the most comprehensive conduct-based short-term rentals. So this will attack the actual issue of bad conduct on these premises. If I start regulating the 300-foot between short-term rentals, firstly, I'm going to change any short-term rentals in the city, I believe, and I've been told that. And making rules that will not affect anything in the hypothetical world to where it may be proactive is not a thing that will help the citizens of New Franklin. It's just adding rules for something that's not an issue. And I believe that making government bigger than what it has to be, I believe is something I'm on this council to make sure that does not happen. And that's why I'm not very much for that, because it's not going to change anything. It's not something we need yet, and I'm not trying to increase the role that we have on people's rights on their property, especially when comparing them against their lawful use of it more than we have to already. So that's why I'm not for that.
Thanks for the explanation. I've got a couple questions here. One is in regards to the transfer to, say, an LLC of the same person. How does that impact it if they are stricken of their license to operate? So does that prohibit them from coming back under their own, say, a new LLC and getting a revised or a second permit?
Yeah, so I'm gonna come back and say that the permit change has to be approved, firstly. So has to follow the rules of being the same person that owns it. So let's say you're trying to find a loophole, I'm assuming, is that if we decline them or for any reason, their thing was revoked from them, they cannot come back under a new separate entity because now we're viewing them as the same person. So it's more like an extension of yourself. I understand there's like tax laws and stuff, and your LLC is a separate entity than you, and they can sue the LLC separate from you. But for the purposes of this ordinance, we're viewing them as the same to make sure you can't do that loophole. And that also makes it more convenient for people who are just maybe cleaning up their estates. They're getting older, or just moving stuff around for tax advantages or for, you know, maybe some, I guess they're all tax advantages, I guess at the end of the day, we're moving from one LLC to a different type of organizational business, but that makes it make sense in that regard, and it also makes sure that you can't just, you know, Devin Allman can't do it, but Allman LLC can do it.
And that would apply to all of their properties?
Yeah, that was, yeah.
And second question I had was in reference to the 300 foot. I understand, and thanks for the explanation, but I understand it's not gonna impact anybody today. I think our concern was if somebody starts buying up properties and starts making those changes, at that point, it's too late for us to react to that. And the whole idea of being proactive was to stop people from acquiring a bunch of properties within certain areas and changing the whole character of that neighborhood.
So, we can, so it's always easy to add rules as a legislature. I always believe that council is always easy to convince us to add rules, it's always convince us to remove or change rules when it's even right. And, you know, we can later, and I believe this council will, if there is a true need on adding a 300-foot rule, it will be very easy to implement this said rule. And even if there's someone that owns 3 houses within each other, we're allowed to enforce that rule still under our authority as the city. Right? But we're allowed to say you have to have 300 feet between each short-term rental. So we can go in and do that later. I just don't want to add it now and burden people with a rule that would not change anything.
Would somebody have more of a legal standing if they already acquired the property and we took that right away from them versus if that was a known right before they acquired the property, they have less of a stand on that?
So I'm not a lawyer on the export, but I believe the ruling is that we're allowed to enforce any zoning code if we believe that it's for the peace. There's a couple describing words in there, but we're allowed to basically enforce any zoning rules that we believe that are for the peace and the tranquility of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I guess my point though is if I went and made the investment on the property, this is my business I'm running essentially. And then the city comes in after I've already acquired this business and says, no, you can't do that. I would think I'd have some legal ramification for changing it after I did, especially when I already checked. And at that point in time, it wasn't an issue.
I still think we can always enforce the rules later. I think, you know, with the argument of being proactive on, you know, the character of the city, anybody can move in and use their property in however way they want, and, you know, allow them to be outside and have bonfires. When I'm allowed to have bonfires, the state of Ohio says I'm allowed to anymore. You know, I can change the community of the neighborhood. I can sit there and paint my house neon orange, and I don't understand how we can sit there and say that the community of the neighborhood is a protection here when anybody can move in and do whichever they please in that regard. If it's the community, the character can be changed by any neighbor.
So in an effort to kind of, I know we've been working on this for a long time, you guys have put a lot of work into it, and thanks for that, it's greatly appreciated. To kind of get this moving again, because it sounds like we've got our answers back from legal. You made some edits to it, we'll see that, I'm assuming here within the next week or so, you can get that put up on the website where residents can look at it and everything. Would it be maybe a good exercise and just to kind of save some time, if we kind of go through council and see if they would support it without the 300 foot, and if there's enough that, if there's more of a majority that want the 300 foot, could we get that put in there then, because that would be what the.
If someone wants to sponsor legislation with a 300-foot rule, they can.
Okay, so you wouldn't put it in.
I would not sponsor something I do not.
Okay.
I do not want. I would not. I think that, my take on going this through the least amount of rules that would fix the problem is a very good conservative approach. And I think if council, really deems that big government and coming in and just throwing all the whole rule book at the wall and seeing what sticks and what doesn't stick is a bad approach. And if we deem it's a good approach, so be it, but I will not vote for that. Like I said, if it doesn't work, a 300-foot rule can always be implemented later. But at this time, it's just not good to.
I think most of the citizens view that at that point, the damage is already done with having that infiltrated and having too many of them in the neighborhood. At that point,
You don't think this council could react fast enough?
But my fear would be somebody's already went through the purchasing of a property before we know it.
It won't affect anything. The whole thing is we don't know, and the conduct-based rules is what the problem is. So, the issue's being resolved by the current legislation. The 300-foot rule is just arbitrary.
Mr. Allman, I appreciate what what you've done, what you and Mr. Wolf and Mr. Stiles have done with this document. I don't understand your reluctance to put the 300-foot rule in. You say it's not going to affect anything. Okay, it's not going to affect anything, and put it in. This is 6 pages long, and at a January meeting, I believe January 7th, 4 council members sat up here and said they'd like to see the 300-foot rule put into this document. We have citizens that have come to our meetings throughout this entire process and have said they'd like to see that in there. For whatever reason, you are absolutely denying that and not doing that, and it is almost like it's your own personal battle at this point. I'm sorry to say, because we have talked about this, we have shown support for this, and yet you continue to refuse to do this, just on your own personal feelings, is the impression I'm getting from it. I will not support it without the 300-foot rule in, I've said it before, and I believe that is very important. We're putting together this document. You're talking about being based on conduct, which is important, and we need that, but we also need to have this 300-foot rule. It is not something that we can come back and change, as has been expressed here tonight. We can't go to people that have purchased property properly and then tell them, too bad, we changed our mind. You can't, you have to sell your property, or you have to live there, or do something else with it. That's not fair, and to even think that we would do that down the road is really kind of unbelievable that we would even consider that would be an option for us. I strongly encourage you to add the 300-foot rule. I believe if you continue to deny that, that again is more on a personal level, and I would suggest that you take your name off the sponsorship of this ordinance and let someone else sponsor it that will then listen to the people, listen to the council members, listen to the citizens.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can sponsor anything they want. I'm not inhibiting anybody from sponsoring different legislation on this topic at all. If you guys want, you can sponsor. I'm not stopping anybody from sponsoring. Nobody has sponsored it throughout this process so far. And and my whole prerogative, at least here, is not personal. It's just trying to solve the issue with the least amount of rules we can, so we don't have to overburden any citizens in the city with something like that. And this is not just going to burden, business owners. Just because on the lake, there's a lot of snowbirds that use that income in the winter to supplement their taxes at the end of the year. So it's not going to affect big business or big short-term rental. There's a lot of people on the lakes that this may affect as well. So that's why I'm cautious when adding rules, like always, and that's how I always approach it. And I want to add the least amount of rules I can that will solve it. And the only issues that have came to me so far, other than hypotheticals, are conduct-based. And I'm going to solve those issues that the citizens are brought to me. And that's why I like it as it is, except with these changes I've pushed so far.
Wouldn't the snowbirds you're talking about already be grandfathered in since they would already be doing it? So it wouldn't affect them?
So when I start and implement a 300-foot rule, and me and you live 295 feet away from each other, and I go and get that permit before you, you're going to have to come and go, well, you have to prove you were a short-term rental beforehand. And look, I don't know what the BZA is going to want to look for, but I don't want to put nobody in a position to sit there and have to prove to themselves as guilty and show they're innocent, so they can have their short-term rental. So I don't want to put nobody in that position.
It's pretty easy just to supplement the document, to show us that they were an existing STR before.
I don't know what they would bring. I mean, they can bring information, but I don't know if everybody keeps a whole binder on hand of information like that. I can't assume so.
I mean, it would probably be in the app of all their rentals and all that.
They don't have to do it on apps.
No, they don't.
They can do it by word of mouth. That's what I'm saying, is I don't want someone to sit up here and say, I'm innocent, I have to prove I'm innocent now, I don't wanna put nobody in those shoes. So that's the issue, that's one of my issues with it as well. Look, we're not gonna vote on it tonight, I've already expressed I'm gonna ask for time, because I have implemented changes from the law director upon this. And I'm probably gonna send it out a little bit later when I make sure it's all cleaned up and neat and everything, and last meeting, I believe, I watched a little bit of it, is, we wanna post on the website as well. It's usually posted anyways, but I think we wanna post it as soon as possible, instead just have it posted there, instead of waiting for it to go. You know, waiting for when Kelly's supposed to be, it's gonna get posted early.
Devin, do you want some of us to sponsor with you and to help with it?
I mean,
Is
you
that what
can,
you're asking? You don't mind if any one of us wants to sponsor? Nobody asked you? I didn't know you wanted someone to help sponsor.
no, I never asked for anybody to sponsor, but if you want something different, you're allowed to sponsor whatever you want, anybody on council is allowed to sponsor anything.
Understood. I thought you said we could all sponsor with you if we wanted to. We did not ask to.
Oh, no, I was talking about other people and other stuff, they can sponsor what they want. I mean, that happens a lot at larger levels of governance, federal, state houses, there's competing Senate bills, very close, have very little change between them, and then they'll see which one survives. But that's one process, that's typically what you see.
If you don't want any of us to help with it, would sponsor you?
Oh, I would love you guys to help me with it, yeah.
Okay. Devin, would you?
Well, always, why would I not?
I can think of anything.
Do we want to have any questions about this from the crowd, from the public? So where we can go.
Marilyn Krosky, 4147 Melcher Avenue. I live, like I said, on Melcher. There is a short-term rental on Hunsinger, which is less than 300 feet from the one on Out Court. So I don't know if you didn't have that information or what. The difference is the one on Hunsinger is on a large lot. It's not as close as the ones on Out Court. So that's why there hasn't been any problems, because they are not 5 feet away from the other house.
So
But they're
that-
both there.
Anyone else?
While 4794 Bickford, your notion of not being proactive in terms of, the zoning changes kind of, all zoning is proactive. All the regulations, when I put additions on my house and stuff, I've had to go through the old permits and the zoning things so that I wouldn't build, a fast food annex, a drive-through next to my house. Well, has that ever been done? Of course it hasn't been done. But there's zoning in place to prevent it. You haven't lived through next door to us when it was an Airbnb, when we had 7 police cars 2 summers ago, hundreds of people running through our yards trashed, damage done. It was, pardon my language, it was hell. And I don't want to go through this again. The property still exists. Right now it's not being rented, but there's another property 2 houses away that the owner owns over 100 Airbnbs. And that's gonna be another one. I don't want my house and the land ground turned into a party place. And not being proactive, I think, that's just irresponsible.
This legislation is proactive in that regard, because once it passes, the conduct that you've all just described is prohibited under this legislation. You can't have parties, you can't have this many people, and if there's ever an instance where there is cops called,
But
it
the
can be
enforcement's
revoked.
gonna come after the fact, after it happens.
There can still, the Airbnb can still be there with another one 300 feet away. So that Airbnb can still exist even if I do add a 300-foot rule. This conduct, all of what you described, is prohibited under the current legislation, so this would resolve the
I
problem.
certainly
yes.
agree with the rest of some of the council members. You have taken this on a personal level.
Just-
You even said personally, and several of your things that you said, you said personally, I feel. It's clear. It's a personal issue for you. It's not what the citizens want. It's not what council at least from old councilman, it's what you want.
Yeah, I understand council can pass any legislation they want. They don't need me to sponsor the legislation, they can all sponsor what they want. The personal note is adding the least amount of rules to solve a problem. The least amount of rules may involve this, so there's a connection personally with the least amount of rules, and I understand how that would come from. But the personal take is that I want to keep the government off the people's back as much as I can and to resolve any issues.
What about protecting the people?
This legislation would protect the people. It would prohibit the conduct that happened to the short-term rental next to.
Agree to disagree.
Any other questions or comments? You can go. You guys are right in front of me by point in this book.
Sharon Goodwin, 678 Nine Hampshire. I agree with Mr. Cutts and Mr. Powell, some of the comments and the concerns, other citizens. But I have a question. If the 300 foot is put into that and something less wanted to be considered, could a variance not be applied for? Thank you.
Yeah, so you can apply for a variance to changes in the code in any regards. If the BZA wants to change it or not, that is up to them. I have no 300 foot rule, so I do not know. You can, you have, any other, yeah?
I'm sorry, no, keep going. Robin Akey, and I'm in agreement with the 300-foot rule, because I think it's better to have it in there now instead of trying to add it later. You've been looking at this legislation for 10 months now, trying to look at what other tweaks you would want to make. You can always take it out, too. But I would like to see the 300-foot rule in here, or in this legislation. One, to try and get it. Or you can change the legislation, just say no STRs in New Franklin. And you don't have to worry about any, well, if it's within X number of feet, or if it's full moon, or the red moon, or whatever. You can just make it that simple. And I'm disappointed in you, Mr. Allman, that you are not being considerate of the people. It's what you want, and that's not being a true representative on council. That's my personal opinion, so I'm allowed to give it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Craig Bowen, 4057 Melton. I think it's more about the character of a neighborhood. You know, you end up with several houses in a row, or every other house with transient tenants in it all the time, instead of, you know, neighbors that you live with year round. I think it just destroys an area, and I see that happening, especially along our area of the lakefront. You know, it's, any house that turns over, you just wonder, you know, is this going to be another one? And if you don't make this proactive, there's nothing, you know, even if the conduct isn't bad and the police aren't called every single rental, you know, you still have the character of your neighborhood that's totally changed, and there's nothing to prevent that. And, you know, they shouldn't be a commercial use in a residential area, and it's definitely a commercial use.
I feel like it'd be the bad conduct that would change the energy of the neighborhood, which is what this would prohibit.
I know, I like going out every morning and seeing the same guy next door, you know, mowing his lawn and taking care of his property, and you know, being a responsible homeowner. I don't see that. You know, the Airbnb may be kept nice, but you know, you're one renter away from carnage, and don't need it.
You can still have that one renter within 300 feet of another renter, and it can still be your neighbor. So it wouldn't resolve that issue in that regard. It's just a world where you can still have an Airbnb next to you with 300-foot rule implemented.
Disagree.
Mr. Allman, at the last meeting, a citizen requested that when the revised ordinance gets posted, that the red line gets posted also, so make it easier for them to see the changes.
Yeah, I've always sent you guys the red line and the updated one, just that's not where I always red line.
Okay, so if you could post that along with it,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments?
Seeing none, we will call again, to order.
I'll close the Laws and Orders Committee at 6:25 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We'll call to order our regular council meeting. To join us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Was there a reminder over there, Jim?
Okay, so just to let you know, in the hallway over here for the police department, there's a bulletin board. And for the last however many years I've been sitting here, stand up, say the pledge, that bulletin board has not changed at all. I mean, nothing. It still has Urban Meyer up there as coach of Ohio State saying, "Buckle your seatbelt," or something like that. I spoke with Chief Pickett last week. We were talking about a couple of different things, and I said, "Can someone change that for me? Just anything different, whatever." And so they did, and they took a picture of me and plastered it on top of Urban Meyer's face, and I went ahead and just. So, thank you there, Chief. I apologize.
Your roll call, please.
Mr. Cox?
I'm here.
Mr. Schaefer?
Present.
Mrs. Jones? Mr. Powell? Mr. Klusky?
Present.
Mr. Almond?
Present. A motion for approval of the regular scheduled, meeting minutes for February 18th of 2026.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Klusky?
Yes.
Mr. Almond?
Abstain.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Now it's time for public comment. Please keep your comments addressed to council and under 4 minutes, and stand and state your name and address, please. Any comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to our laws and ordinance. Oh, I'm sorry.
An ordinance providing for the regulation of short-term rental operations.
The Laws and Orders Committee asks for time.
Time is requested, time is granted. Move on to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. As everybody can tell, March 5th will be the 20th birthday for the city of New Franklin. So thank you to our communications manager, Katie Smith, for getting a sign, and help yourselves to cupcakes and water over there. For me, what has made New Franklin special is our small town farm, and at least in my experience, people still help each other, look out for each other in this community. We have some great momentum going citywide with projects and updates to our infrastructure. But to me, that it still has that familiar feel from going up here and coming back here because of that. People tend to look out for each other and help each other. But anyways, just want to mention it, and happy birthday, New Franklin. With the help of our team and contracted engineers, we continue to make sure we're submitting for any and all funding opportunities we're eligible for. A lot of that closes this month. Speaking of that, with the Waterline Extension Project, typically in the past, it has opened at the beginning of February. I know Katie and myself were panicking because we weren't hearing about it, that we had submitted or anything like that after all the work that everybody's done on it. For whatever reason, the Ohio EPA did not open the application process or window until February 27th. So it just opened. We are positioned well. I know Aqua's compliance department's all set to go. I think their wide team of attorneys has reviewed everything. We have our letters of support and feel good about it and hope for a successful campaign to secure that funding. I have been to Columbus enough, as I told Sue for a while. I love the town. I do not like to drive all that much down 71 and back. But I thought it was worth it to make sure we're heard and listen, money that doesn't come out of our budget is great money to me to try to secure whenever possible, even as the new guy. So, looks like Lockhart is starting the sewer work finally along State Route 93. I know they've been staged with material and equipment for about a month, I would say, so far. Again, I was getting nervous because I know Bell Store's calling, getting nervous about that project starting. We have the paving coming in behind it that ODOT agreed to move up. So we don't have to pave it twice, saves money and fix up the roadway right behind that sewer. Our engineers have advised us we are still on track, even with the delay, with the weather and things like that. So we're gonna continue to monitor that and hopefully keep that moving, and apologize for any inconveniences as we get that in. Speaking of paving, we received the bids for the Cleveland Maslin Phase 3 paving project. They just came in, we're reviewing them, met with GPD, who's the engineering firm behind that particular piece, and we'll have a resolution put together for the next meeting, along with the resolution for the inspection services for that project as well on the 18th. Sisler Field restroom installation is moving forward now that the ground is finally thawing. We're reviewing material lists, things like that, and I'm getting ready to ramp up there and hopefully be in and ready to go for a good part of the baseball and softball seasons. Polar bear jump, if anybody knows, was held at the state park this past Saturday. And man, were there a lot of people. Unfortunately, one of those people drove through our gate at the Tudor House. So we're resolving that issue. But I think they raised about $200,000 for the Akron Food Bank, which is awesome. And saw a ton of people there from our community who participated. I threw my kid in instead of me. My heart will be the one that would stop in that situation, and I have too much metal assembled in here to take any chances. But man, a lot of people were jumping, raising money, and we're really positive. And I know the organizers were really excited about the money raised for that. So many people came up and remarked how great the visitor center looks, how good the Tudor House looks, and conservatory with the assembly was underway, and they were commenting on that too. And people seem to be excited about what's going on in that little neck of our woods, so to speak. Speaking of the lakes, met with State Park Representative Mike Studeny today, and again, brainstorming for other ideas. We love people coming in, but we want to make sure our community's involved in that stuff too, and realizing the great resources we have there. We are submitting a letter of support for a new boathouse at the state park for our law enforcement base of operations and just boat dockage. The current one, I think, is set to be demolished here in the next couple of weeks, and it's in a rough state of pretty dilapidated. And I think the state park stopped using it a few years ago. He said that the Summit County Sheriff's Office still does. And Representative Daniels is spearheading that project, and with 70% of the lakes in New Franklin, I thought it was important to support that. And lastly, just want to commend our entire service department for keeping our roads looking great during one of the worst winters in recent memory. That was not a fun one. A lot of salt, a lot of resources being used and manpower to keep our roadways safe. So appreciate that. And that is all. And hopefully that's it. But I don't know what. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Finance report, please.
Not much to report on our end. We are working on collecting the information for our net financial report. So it's just getting all the things together and putting them on their share file so that they can start compiling that for 2025 financial report. Other than the normal stuff that we have to do, like get posters ready for the 20th anniversary and just odds and ends like that. But tax season we're pretty much in the midst of that. Everybody's usually, starting to take care of their taxes, so just kind of a reminder that, RETA taxes will be due as well, and if you have any problems or any questions, that you can't get resolved, please use us as a liaison. We're happy to contact RETA and help out in if you have any problems. And we've had a lot of people that come and contact us and we help them out. So please use that resource if you need it. We can't do your taxes, but we will certainly help you find the right person in RETA to help you, if you have a problem, and also if you have any, late reporting that requires, that ends up getting you a penalty or, any interest. So please see us and we'll certainly help you out with that. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Old business? I have one piece of old business, nobody else does, the flag survey. I talked to Katie and, she's willing to, get that up there for us. If you guys have any questions that you feel are necessary to put on that survey, if you email them to me, I'll get it assembled, send it out for review, and give it to Katie for, publication on the website and hopefully on the Facebook page too. Another old business? Move on to new business?
I don't want to mention something, Mr. Goodwin can correct me if I'm wrong here. I think it's on March 11th, they're having a chili, is that March 11th? For the scouts, for the church?
If that is, that's for the Cub Scouts, I'm not aware of it.
So I think it's March 11th, 6 to 7:30, might be chili, I think it's $10 a person. So if you guys are hungry, by all means come out.
The church is having their soup and salad on the 21st.
I think they have a sign up front too, the children say that they will. But I haven't moved off the show, but that sounds good.
I guess, I'll go with some new business here. We got a notice from the, New Franklin Police Department in conjunction with the Manchester Local Schools. That they will be hosting a Safety City 2026 from August 10th to August 14th. Now, this program teaches, children entering kindergarten the essential lessons about traffic, fire, water, and personal safety through a fun, hands-on activity and interactive mini town setting. They are looking for local businesses or anybody who would like to sponsor, one of these, pedal cars. And one pedal car is $350. Businesses could team up, or residents could team up. And if you guys are interested, contact anybody at the police department, or myself, and I will get you further information and go from there. Council,
Could you repeat the dates, please?
sure, it's, August 10th, through the 14th.
Thank you.
And, I, for one, from council, would be willing to go in on
I do it as well.
I would too. We would love it.
I'll send out the information to your emails and then go from there. Any other new business?
While we're mentioning school things, I know all the local schools are have to put it on their plays and things like that, springtime. A lot of the teams sports teams are still in tournaments, things like that. And, just thought to mention, if you're looking for something to do, check them out. Pretty talented kids out there, so.
Mr. Council.
Mayor, last year, we had the, department heads give kind of a state of the department, report at our council meeting. And, I think it was pretty informative, and I'd like to ask if we could, do that again this year. If you could, ask if you're into it, in favor of it, ask the department heads to, come at our next meeting and present a quick little, state of the department, share, staffing, equipment, anything else that's going on, anything that's coming up for the new year, this year, plans ahead. But I especially want to hear any accomplishments that their department has had in the past year. Something where maybe one of their members did something extraordinary, or not necessarily extraordinary for the city, but for the department, or whatever opportunity for them to really kind of show off their department and some of the positive things that we may not always hear remind us of some of the great things that they've done over the past year. So if you're okay with that, we would ask them to come do that at the next meeting, if you think that's a good time frame.
Yeah, I'll, make sure everybody's available, but I think they'd be happy to do that, share what's going on. We've got, I don't wanna let the cat out of the bag, but we have some officers of ours getting honored in a pretty big way, and I think Chief Bacon would like to announce that. And yeah, we definitely, I won't make them all talk, but I'll force a few of them too, and, yeah, I think they'd be happy to do that, and I'll get that, organized.
Thank you.
You spoke on Sisler with sewer. There's a couple residents who are asking about the walking path and when that might be, when it's gonna start.
Well, I know we've been meeting with Village and the engineer involved with that. We're looking at the start date, we're also looking at, some funding for that, some additional funding too, so I'll have more answers for you here in the next month, I think, next 30 days. But, we've been reviewing that. There was some disputes on whether or not we pave it, stormwater runoff, and we're just working through those details to make sure we do it, as strategically as possible. But I'll update you once I know more.
Any other new business? This is the time for public questions and answers on issues raised at tonight's meeting. Any comments? Seeing none, we have a need for an executive session this evening there.
That what we go do?
All right, we will enter an executive session. No decisions will be made, and this will be about property acquisition.